What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another NFL video. Now I say NFL video because this video is going to be a little bit different. Of course, as you know, if you are a regular on this channel, normally we do a lot of Lions stuff. Normally we talk about the Lions, we go over their roster, their draft picks, whatever they got going on for the future. But today I wanted to branch out. I've mentioned this a couple times. I want to branch out. I kind of want to go into the rest of the NFL, kind of want to, look at some other NFL teams, and I figured the NFL playoffs would be a great way to kind of start that, a great way to get involved. Obviously, my Detroit Lions are not in the NFL playoffs. We weren't a very good team this season. We weren't a very good football team. So obviously, we're not in the playoffs, but I do think giving playoff predictions, kind of going with some stuff in the playoffs would be a good way to kind of get my feet wet, kind of dabble with other NFL teams, see the response, see how, it goes. And I kind of wanted to experiment and try things. And I figured the offseason and the postseason would be a good opportunity for me to do so. So as you can tell by the title of the video today, we are going to be going over my playoff predictions, going over every single matchup from the wild card round all the way up to the Super Bowl, go round by round, game by game, and eventually come to the decision of a Super Bowl champion and the team that I believe will go all the way and win the Super Bowl. Now, before we get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this NFL content, whether you're a Lions fan or a fan of another NFL team, I do plenty of content that can be considered for other teams as well. So if you're an NFL fan, if you enjoy the content of either prospect breakdowns, coaching breakdowns, or of course playoff predictions, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so, helps the channel out more than you can know. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. It would help everybody involved. It would help me. It would help the channel out a ton. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. With all that being said, and without any further ado, I already know this is going to be a long video. I already took long enough for the intro, so let's get right into the playoff predictions for the 2021 playoff race. Now, I'm going to start in the wild card round. Obviously, that's where the NFL playoffs start, and I'm going to be going matchup by matchup based on when they're going to be played. So we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills versus the Indianapolis Colts. I'll leave a timestamp in the description if you just want to go to your team's matchup. If you just want to go to a certain matchup, then obviously you can go down there and just go over to that. But again, as I said, we will be starting with the Bills and the Colts playing their first wild card game of the NFL postseason. Now, I have the Bills winning this game. I have the Buffalo Bills winning this game for a couple reasons now, and I'm going to explain my reasoning for everything. I'm not going to go incredibly in depth, but I will try to give you some examples, and I will try to give you the evidence as to why I have what matchup and what winner I have and why. So for me, I have the Bills winning this first matchup. I have them defeating the Indianapolis Colts in the first game of the wild card this season, and the big reason for me that I really like the Bills in the playoffs this year is their passing. They are a top 3 passing team in the NFL right now. They have 4,620 passing yards, ranking 3rd in the NFL. To go along with that, they have 40 passing touchdowns, again ranking 3rd in the NFL. The Colts don't have a great passing defense. They started the NFL season very strong in the secondary, getting a lot of turnovers, not allowing a lot of yards through the air, and not allowing a lot of points. However, as the season went on, the Indianapolis Colts kind of fell back down to earth a little bit, and their passing defense didn't finish tremendously. Their pass defense finished 20th in passing yards allowed, and they finished 12th in touchdowns allowed. Now, they did finish top 10 in interceptions gained, but again, I think a lot of that came from very early in the season and not so much from the latter stages of the season, which is obviously as you go into the playoffs, you want to look at how you've been playing recently. You want to look at how you've been performing recently in the NFL season, and with the Colts struggling to the finish line a little bit on the defense, not a bad defense per se, obviously. They're in the playoffs. They're still a top defensive unit in the NFL. However, their passing defense and their secondary has been a little shaky the past couple of weeks. As I said, in the NFL, finishing 20th in yards and 12th in touchdowns allowed. I do think the Bills will get past the Indianapolis Colts. I think it'll be close. I do really like the Colts. I think they have a very good defense, but to me, that, struggle in the secondary in the last couple months of the NFL season, obviously finishing where they did as far as stats-wise, with the Bills having such a good passing offense with such a good offensive coordinator in Brian Daboll, and the fact that to me, the Colts don't really have anything special on offense to get past a pretty solid Bills defense. To me, the Bills take this one in a double-digit win. I don't think it'll be a blowout, right? But I do think the Bills win by 10 to 14 points, obviously moving on to the divisional round of the playoffs. Getting on to the Seattle Seahawks versus the Los Angeles Rams, the second matchup on Saturday for the wild card round. I have the Seahawks taking this one. I had the Seattle Seahawks taking this matchup and going into the divisional round of the NFC. Now, the Seahawks and the Rams obviously played twice this season as they are division rivals, and they ended up splitting the series. The Rams ended up winning the first matchup. The Seahawks ended up winning the previous matchup, the matchup that happened just a couple weeks ago, and I have the Seahawks winning this one again. Now, the reason I have this is, again, as I mentioned with the Bills and the Colts, it's how you've been playing lately, and the Seahawks finished the season pretty strong, and obviously finished the season defeating the Los Angeles Rams. They defeated the Rams 2 weeks ago, and I believe they will defeat them again. The Rams, when they first played the Seahawks, their first matchup of the season, that was when Seattle's defense stopped opposing offenses about as well as the world stopped the coronavirus from spreading. I mean, the defense for Seattle was historically bad for the majority of the season, but the Seattle Seahawks defense got much, much better in the final couple games of the season. The final 4 games of the season, they allowed 3 points, 9 points, which was against the Rams, 15 points, and then 23 points. I think they win this game. The Rams only have the 22nd scoring offense in the NFL, and the Seahawks defense has not allowed a lot of scores to be put up on them in recent weeks. So I do think the Seahawks will take that game for that reason. The Seahawks obviously have a very good offense. They're 8th in scoring offense right now. However, the Rams are 1st in scoring defense. So I do think that will be strength against strength. DK versus Jalen Ramsey, Seahawks offense versus Rams defense. I think that will be the premier matchup of the game. However, with the Rams' inability to score points consistently, and with the Rams only sitting at 22nd in scoring offense, and of course with the Seattle defense playing very good from a scoring perspective the last month or so, I do believe the Hawks take this one, and they do bounce the Rams out of the playoffs. Again, I think it'll be a very close matchup. I think it'll be very, very close and very exciting, just as the previous 2 matchups between these 2 teams have been. But I do think the Seahawks win this game. I think they're better built for the playoffs. I think they're more consistent on offense, and of course their defense is getting better and better and better as the weeks go on, and they finish the season incredibly strong. And if they can even have an average defense in the playoffs, they'll be very, very dangerous, and they will be more than the Rams can handle. I have the Seahawks winning this one at a close, low-scoring football game, but I do think in the end the Hawks will pull it out. Now, for the third and final game for Saturday's contest in the wild card round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be going and visiting the Washington football team in Washington for a playoff game on Saturday night, and I actually have the Washington football team winning this game. And this is my first big upset of the NFL playoffs, and this is because, as funny as it is that the football team made the playoffs, right? Haha, they have no name. Haha, they play in the NFC least. All these different jokes and memes and all that. It's hilarious, right? But truly, looking at the Washington football team, how they finished the season, some of the statistics that they have going for their team, they are built for the playoffs. They have a very good defense, and they finished this season incredibly strong and are on a hot streak going into the playoffs versus a Buccaneers team who historically throughout the season struggled against real playoff contenders, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now, the Washington football team has the 4th scoring defense in the NFL, and they are 2nd when it comes to yardage allowed. Now, not to mention that they finished the season on a 5-2 record, one of those losses coming when Alex Smith was not able to play. So with the Washington football team under Alex Smith, they actually finished the season 5-1, and if you finish the season 5-1 with the 4th scoring defense and the 2nd defense as far as yards, you're going to be very hard to beat. The Washington football team has momentum going into the playoffs. They have a great defense to stand behind that offense and be complementary, and that offense we've seen before put up a lot of points, and we've seen the offense be relatively effective time and time again this season when Alex Smith is actually at the helm. Now, don't get me wrong, the Buccaneers are not a bad football team, as they sit with the 8th scoring defense and the 8th defense as far as yards allowed in the NFL. However, again, as you can tell from the statistics, the Washington football team has a better defense than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season, they are 1-5 versus playoff contenders. They had 2 losses to the Saints. They lost to the Bears. They lost to the Rams. They lost to one other playoff team, and the only playoff team they were able to beat was the Green Bay Packers, which, yes, was a very, very good performance, right? It was a very solid, very dominant performance by this Buccaneers team, but the lack of production against true playoff teams, the lack of production versus the 6 playoff teams they did play, because they only played 6 playoff teams this year, which is quite a few considering there's 16 games in the season, so 6 of their 16 games were versus playoff teams. They were only 1-5 in those games, and those were all 5 of their losses. All of their losses came to playoff contenders. All 5 of their losses came to playoff teams, and I believe their 6th and final loss of the season will come to Washington, because obviously Washington feels like they have something to prove. Washington, everybody's like, oh, they shouldn't have made it in. Oh, they shouldn't have done this. Oh, they're not really a playoff contender. Everybody said that about Ohio State a week ago, and now Ohio State's in the championship after stomping on Clemson. So that mentality is there. That bulletin board material is there for Washington. They have a good defense. They're on a hot streak with Alex Smith. They're 5-1 with him. The Buccaneers have struggled versus playoff teams this year. They stomped on our Lions. They stomped on my Lions, right? They stomped on a bunch of bad teams. They beat the Atlanta Falcons twice. One of those was a huge comeback that shouldn't have been a comeback in the first place. They get off to slow starts, and if you get off to a slow start versus Washington, I don't know if they're going to be able to develop that rhythm in the second half to really put up a lot of points and enough points to win with Washington's defense playing at the level that it is right now. So I do have the Washington football team upsetting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and knocking Tom Brady out of the wild card round for the 2nd year in a row. Or Tom Brady will be knocked out of the wild card round for the 2nd year in a row. Now moving on to the first Sunday game of the wild card weekend, it is the Ravens versus the Tennessee Titans. Now I have the Ravens winning this game, another upset in the making in the AFC, and the first upset in the AFC this postseason. Now, the Ravens and the Titans are very similarly built teams. They are very similar. Both teams are built to run the football effectively and play good defense. And while both teams are phenomenal at it, the Ravens are better at it. The Ravens are better from both of those standpoints and both of those philosophies. When you look at the running game, the Baltimore Ravens rank first when it comes to rushing yards, while the Tennessee Titans rank second. When it comes to yards per carry, the Ravens rank first in the NFL, while the Tennessee Titans rank second in the NFL. If you look at defensive yards, the Ravens, they rank 7th in the NFL, while the Tennessee Titans rank 28th. And if you look at points allowed in the NFL, the Ravens rank 2nd, while the Tennessee Titans rank 24th. So while both teams are very good at rushing the football, only one of these teams really plays elite defense, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. And yeah, it's great that you have Derrick Henry. Yes, Derrick Henry is a monster, rushed for 2,000 yards this season. Derrick Henry is different in the playoffs, and he can single-handedly take over a football game. But I think with the Ravens having the more efficient rushing attack overall, with them having a significantly better defense, and the fact that they're angry, they want revenge on the Tennessee Titans. I talked earlier about how Ohio State was told they don't belong in the college football playoff. Well, guess who knocked them out a year ago? It was Clemson. They had that in their locker room. They had that in their weight room the entire season, the entire college football offseason, the entire college football season. They had that score in their locker room. They had it all over campus. They had it all over everywhere for this football team to see and remember what that feels like to lose. The Baltimore Ravens are in a similar situation. They were knocked out of the playoffs last year by this Tennessee team. Not only are they the better statistical football team coming in, they're going to be angry. They're going to look to get that revenge just like Ohio State did a week ago. And Ohio State absolutely throttled Clemson in the college football playoff. And I think we're going to see a similar result in the NFL playoff, where maybe the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to throttle the Tennessee Titans, right? I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think they're going to win by 28 points or whatever Ohio State won by. But I do think the Ravens are the better and the more complete team than the Tennessee Titans, and the fact that they're angry and they truly want revenge and they want to beat this team more than anybody else in the NFL right now. I think that mentality and the fact that they are a more complete defense gives them the edge in this football game, and that's why I have them advancing to the divisional round. Now moving to the second game on Sunday of Wild Card Weekend, we have the Chicago Bears at the New Orleans Saints, and I'm not gonna dilly-dally. I'm not gonna, hype one team up. The Saints are gonna win this football game. The Saints are the better team. I think the Bears are overrated, and that's not me as a Lions fan. That's not me wearing Lions stuff with a signed Matt Stafford jersey in the background. That's not me being salty because they made the playoffs. I truly think the Chicago Bears are overrated. They went on a 6 or 7 game losing streak in the NFL season. They lost to us, the Detroit Lions, who again, as I said, weren't a very good football team this year. They have a lot of struggles Bills, their defense isn't super good. For being a defensive football team, they only rank 11th in yards allowed and 13th in points allowed. The offense ranks 26th in total yardage and 23rd in points scored, while the New Orleans Saints rank 12th in offensive yardage, better than the Bears, 5th in points scored, better than the Bears, 4th in yards allowed on defense, much better than the Bears, and 6th in points allowed on defense, much better than the Bears. They are a more complete team. They are the better team. They did not just sneak into the wild card. The Saints have been in it for a very long time. They were competing for the number 1 seed. The Saints are a better football team, and the Saints are a more complete football team. They play better defense. They play better offense. They have the better coach. They will win this football game. I can almost guarantee it. That is probably my lock of wild card weekend. I feel very confident in that matchup. Now, moving on to the final game of wildcard weekend, we have the clash of the AFC North rivals as the Cleveland Browns travel to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the division-winning Pittsburgh Steelers, to try to take them down for a second week in a row. And unfortunately for Browns fans, after a fantastic season going 10-6, 11-5, whatever you guys went to make the playoffs, after having a phenomenal season and finally getting back to the playoffs, I do think you fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. As much as people like to say the Pittsburgh Steelers are overrated, as much as you like to say, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't actually that good, they had an easy schedule, they barely won games, they lost to some bad teams, yada yada yada, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a good team. They have a top defense in the NFL, they're a top scoring defense in the NFL, they're a top defense when it comes to yardage allowed, they are a very good defense, and the Browns only beat the Pittsburgh Steelers by 2 points in the last game in Week 17, and that was when the Pittsburgh Steelers ended up benching Ben Roethlisberger and actually gave a majority of their backups a lot of playing time and a lot of repetitions. I'm not saying the starters didn't play, because the starters did play. The starters for the Steelers outside Ben Roethlisberger did play in the football game, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a much better situation. Obviously, the Browns were only able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers without their starting quarterback by 2 whole points. The first time they played Pittsburgh, I believe, won 38-7. I mean, it was a really, really dominant victory by the Pittsburgh Steelers. With Ben coming back, I think it will be a different story this time around. Not to mention, in Week 17, the Steelers had nothing to play for, so it's not like they showed all of their cards. It's not like they showed everything that they had to give versus the Cleveland Browns, whereas the Cleveland Browns needed to win in order to get into the playoffs, so they did show their hand. They did show all their cards. They put all the cards on the table, so Pittsburgh was able to see that and analyze it over the past 2 weeks, or over the past week or so, whereas the Cleveland Browns might not have that opportunity because the Steelers were holding back. Because the Steelers had nothing to play for, they didn't show their entire strategy versus Cleveland, and I do believe, especially with Cleveland's coaches being out this week, they will fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers are a more complete team. I think they sit in a much better situation, and in the end, I think the coaching makes the difference. And of course, I'm going to take Mike Tomlin over an interim head coach in the playoffs, coaching his first and calling his first NFL game. Now, those are my 6 matchups for the wild card weekend. And with all that being said, I have the Bills, the Seahawks, the Washington football team, the Ravens, the Saints, and the Steelers all advancing to the second round of the playoffs. Now, with that being the case, that means the Bills will play the Steelers, Kansas City will play Baltimore, New Orleans will play Seattle, and Green Bay will play the Washington football team. Now, starting with the Bills and Steelers game, I have the Bills winning this game as well. Again, I mentioned that the Steelers were a very good football team, especially even without Ben Roethlisberger, barely lost to a very good Cleveland Browns team. I think the Bills are one of the best teams in the AFC. I think they are obviously sitting at the 2nd seed. I think they are one of the 2 best teams in the AFC. I think they're a top 2 team. I don't think they're overrated. The last time the Bills and the Steelers played, it was not a pretty game for Pittsburgh. I think it rehappens again. I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs hook up a lot. Pittsburgh has a very good defense, but one of the things they struggle with is giving up a lot of big plays, and Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen thrive on those big plays, so I think they'll take advantage of that time and time again. I don't think it'll be all the time. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be very, very competitive throughout the entirety of the game, but I do think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs connect on a couple deep passes, maybe a couple deep touchdowns to really set them over the top and barely nudge their way into the AFC Championship game. Now, looking at Kansas City and Baltimore, Baltimore, I have Kansas City winning this game. Kansas City, first in yards, sixth in points, number 10 scoring defense in the NFL. They're a good football team. They're, I think, more complete than the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're a little bit more consistent than the Baltimore Ravens. I think that, they have a better coach than the Baltimore Ravens. They have better talent. They're an absolute juggernaut in the AFC, and I don't think it's going to be a walk-in. I don't think they're just going to show up in Kansas City. I don't think they're just going to show up versus Baltimore and trounce them and walk all over them. I do think it'll be close. I think Lamar and the Ravens will make it an incredibly close football game. However, I do think the Chiefs are an insanely good powerhouse kind of a football team, and with that being the case, I do think Kansas City, with that top offense in the NFL, number 1 in yards, number 6 in points, and having a relatively good defense, top 10 in scoring defense, I do think they beat the Baltimore Ravens, and they do advance to the AFC Championship to meet the Buffalo Bills. And moving on to the NFC, you have New Orleans versus Seattle. Now, I have New Orleans winning this game. I think New Orleans is a more complete team. New Orleans has a better scoring defense and a better scoring offense. They are a more complete team, in my opinion, and why I think Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense is very, very good. Obviously, the Saints are coming off a performance where, the Saints are obviously finishing the season incredibly strong. Drew Brees is getting better every week as he recovers from his injury. Alvin Kamara is incredibly good. That defense is getting better as it goes along. They're a very complete team. Just a couple weeks ago, they competed snap for snap with the Kansas City Chiefs, who many people have as the number 1 team in the NFL right now. I think New Orleans is more complete of a football team, and I think with Alvin Kamara having a big game in the NFC divisional round, I think that the New Orleans Saints barely scrape by, and they barely get into the NFC Championship game. Now, getting on to Green Bay and the Washington football team, the final matchup of the divisional round, I have Green Bay winning this game. As good as I think Washington is, and as little respect as I think they get, I also, as a Lions fan who watched his team play against Green Bay twice this season, Green Bay is legit. Green Bay is very, very good. They're the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. I mean, they're a powerhouse. They score so many points, and as good as Washington's defense is, I truly think that they don't have the offensive power to stand up to the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, not just the NFC, but the NFL as an entire league, and as a result, I do believe that the Green Bay Packers will trounce the Washington football team, knocking them out in the divisional round and propelling the Green Bay Packers organization to yet another NFC Championship game. Now, with the 2 championship games being set, with Kansas City facing Buffalo in the AFC Championship and New Orleans versus Green Bay in the NFC Championship, I'm going to go a little bit more into depth in some of the research that I did for this video, and we'll start with the AFC Championship game. Now, you have the Buffalo Bills, the number 2 seeded Buffalo Bills, traveling to Kansas City to take on the reigning Super Bowl champions and the hot as can be Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I have the upset happening here. I have Buffalo winning this football game, and here's why. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs are a very, very good offensive team. They're number 1 in total yards, they're number 6 in points scored, and they're number 3 in third down conversion on the season. Very good offense, top offense in the NFL, one of the top offenses in the NFL. They are very, very good. However, I do think they're a little bit inconsistent when it comes to scoring points at times, and that's something, and that is a flaw that I don't see in the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are number 2 in total yards, so just one spot behind, a couple hundred yards behind the Kansas City Chiefs. However, they are number 2 in scoring they are number 2 in scoring offense in the NFL, so they are a little bit higher, couple more points a game than the Kansas City Chiefs. They are a little bit more consistent. I don't see the same stutters in the Bills offense that I've seen in Kansas City's. So for that reason, and the fact that they are the number 1 third down conversion, I think the Buffalo Bills win in a shootout. I think they're more efficient offense. I think that they're more, their ability to convert on third down better, and their ability to, put up points a little better than the Kansas City Chiefs does give them the slight edge in this football game. And I do think the Bills win a shootout in Kansas City to advance to the Super Bowl. I do think that the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC. I think Kansas City is very close, and I would not be surprised if Kansas City did win this football game. However, with the Bills having a more consistent offensive philosophy, with them having more consistency on the offense throughout the entirety of the season, I do think consistency is key in the playoffs, and obviously the Buffalo Bills have statistically been more consistent this year than the Kansas City Chiefs have been. Now, moving on to the NFC Championship game to see who will meet the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. It is between New Orleans and Green Bay, two veteran quarterbacks, Breeze versus Rodgers, a classic NFC matchup, and I, unfortunately, as a Lions fan, have the Green Bay Packers going to the Super Bowl. The Green Bay Packers won this matchup early in the season. I believe it was a 7-point game when it was all said and done, but since then the Packers offense has gotten even better. The Packers defense has gotten even better. So has the New Orleans Saints, to be fair. The Saints have gotten incredibly good. The Saints are very, very good as well. But again, as I mentioned in the previous round, the Green Bay Packers have the number one scoring offense in the NFL, and I don't see anybody on that New Orleans Saints team that is really going to stack up well versus Davante Adams. As a fan of a team that plays Davante Adams twice a year, he is not an easy person to stop. As a fan of somebody who plays Davante Adams year in and year out and twice a year, and I've seen him go up against a lot of different cornerbacks, Davante Adams is really good. Like, Saints fans, or whoever plays the Packers in the playoffs, Davante Adams is good, people. Aaron Rodgers is very good. There's a reason they're the number one scoring offense in the NFL, and going against a top scoring defense in the New Orleans Saints, who rank 6th in the NFL in points allowed, I just think the Green Bay Packers will be too much. I think Aaron Rodgers, with his MVP-esque season, will beat New Orleans in the NFC Championship, advancing to the Super Bowl and setting the stage for Super Bowl 55, where I have the Buffalo Bills taking on the Green Bay Packers. Now, in my opinion, these are the two best and the two most complete and most consistent teams in the NFL. Obviously, both of them are top scoring offenses with above average defenses. I think they're the most consistent. I think they're the most complete teams in I think they're both the two most complete teams in each conference, and I do believe that they will meet in Super Bowl 55. Now, looking at Buffalo, they have the number 2 scoring offense. They have the number 2 offense as far as yardage gained, and they have the number 1 third down offense in the NFL. Looking at Green Bay's offense, they're 9th in yardage allowed, so they're a little bit more inconsistent when it comes to yardage gained. However, they are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, as I've said numerous times at this point. So obviously they're very good at scoring points. Both teams are, and they are the number 2 team when it comes to third down conversion. So both of these teams are efficient offenses that convert third downs very well and score a lot of points. Now, if you look at their defenses, Buffalo's defense comes in as the 16th scoring defense in the NFL, the 14th defense as far as yardage allowed, and the 13th defense as far as third down conversion allowed. Now, the Green Bay Packers, when being compared to that, they are the 14th scoring offense they are the 14th scoring defense in the NFL, the 9th defense in yardage allowed, and the 10th defense as far as third down conversion. And as well, and as close as I think this game will be, as fun and as exciting as I think this game will be, I think by reading the stats, you can tell that the Green Bay Packers are going to win this football game. Unfortunately, as a Lions fan, I do think the Packers win the Super Bowl. And as much as that pains me to say it, look at the stats. I mean, they have a statistically a better defense. They have an MVP quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. They have a top wide receiver in Davante Adams, who, as I said in the last round, I don't see anybody on the Buffalo Bills that's really going to be able to shut down Davante Adams. I mean, Tre'Davious White is a phenomenal cornerback, and I think he will shadow Davante for the entirety of the game. And I don't know if Davante Adams will have the biggest game in the Super Bowl, but I don't see him shutting him down completely. I still see Davante Adams getting open. He's a phenomenal route runner, has very good hands. Both offenses are tremendous, but the Green Bay Packers have the slight advantage on defense, and I think, obviously, we've all heard the saying, defense wins championships. I think the Green Bay Packers, with the slightly better defense and the slightly better scoring offense, end up winning the Super Bowl. I do think they end up being Super Bowl champions. As much as that pains to say me, I do have the Green Bay Packers defeating the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs and in Super Bowl 55 to be crowned Super Bowl champions. Now, with all that being said, that was a long video. That was a lot of talking, a lot of playoff matchups, a lot of numbers. Let me know what you guys think about the playoffs down in the comments below. What did I get wrong? What matchups did I get right? What matchups did I get wrong? I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of disagreement. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people, homers of different teams, saying, nah, we're going to go to the Super Bowl. Nah, we're going to be better. Nah, we're going to go farther. This and that and that. Again, this is not 100% accurate. These are, of course, just predictions. I will be live streaming one of these games, so let me know down in the comments what game you would like to see for Wild Card Weekend. I can't do the Browns-Steelers game. I'm not going to be up at midnight on Sunday and go to school the next day. Any of the other 5 games, though, I am totally down to stream and see everybody there. So if you want to see a particular playoff stream on Wild Card Weekend, leave it down in the comments below. But with all of that being said, that is my playoff prediction. Unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers are my Super Bowl champions. I think they're the most complete team in the NFL. I think they are the best football team in the NFL this season, and I do believe they will exit the playoffs as Super Bowl champions. With all that being said, though, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video and sticking around to see my playoff predictions. With all that being said, though, that's all I got for you guys today. If you are new to the channel, if you're a fan of one of these teams, if you're a fan of NFL content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please consider taking those 2 seconds to like the video and subscribe. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. It would help the channel out more than you could know. And I'm going to do more NFL content. It's not just going to be Lions. It'll be primarily Lions, but it won't be only Lions. Obviously, draft prospects are for everybody. Coaching candidates are for a lot of different teams. You know, a lot of my stuff is, it's focused around the Lions, but it's also generic things that you can take what I say and evaluate it for somebody on your team, or evaluate that prospect or that coach for your team and what your team is looking for. You can stick around. If you can just hit that like and subscribe button, I'd be super appreciative for it. But with all that being said, after a half hour of talking and a half hour of playoff predictions, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more NFL content. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.